we discovered a massive need for women to find an identity surrounding being a woman and an entrepreneur. I'm Marley.
And I'm Rachel. Women like us, women who are the primary earners in our families,
are searching for identity, community, visibility, permission.
A place to be heard and supported.
We are leading with our vulnerability to allow others to feel safe.
We are strong
and feminine. We are bread-winning women.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Breadwinning Women TV. I'm so excited that you guys are here. We obviously took a break last week because, wow, what a week, right, Marley?
We're up to our eyeballs.
That's a good way of putting it. We had such an intense week, but we are so excited about this week's talk because it totally relates to those days where it's just like morning to night, night to morning, crazy events, things that can happen. And so I shared a little bit of my story about boundaries and about what that looks like in the email for this week. Before I dive on in, do you have anything you want to say to preface this, Marley?
Well, both of us, because I sent the email for last week, and then we ended up changing our schedule because of the event that we had. But both of us shared a story of boundaries that I want to talk about today, that it's about setting boundaries with others, but also setting boundaries with yourself. That like when you teach people how to treat you or what kind of standards that you'll accept, and then when you set boundaries with yourself and cross them, then what happens? When you set boundaries with someone, you teach them how to treat you, or then you change your mind on, oh, actually now I've changed, now you have to treat me like this. Sometimes it can be alarming for the person, but we also have to talk about setting boundaries with yourself and sticking to them, or else what are the consequences?
So I shared a story in my email for this week, and then Marley's going to share one of her stories. And then we have some really, really crazy applicable life lessons. If you're listening to this or you're watching this and you have ever found yourself in a similar situation where it's like you get a 2 a.m. email and all of a sudden now your heart is racing, you hop out of bed, you're handling things, you find yourself stressed, and it doesn't just happen like once, it happens all the time. Or even worse, you get a call from a client in the middle of the night. Another example of this is, this is so crazy. I've experienced this happening a lot during big events. So when I go on a vacation or when I go spend time with my family, does this sound familiar to anyone? When I have these big events happening, it kind of seems to be the time where people reach out and they want extra support all of a sudden. I will never forget some different things that happened in my life. And during those times, there were clients or students or prospects or whatever that reached out with crazy expectations. And I was like, is this what life is going to look like? Am I forever going to be hounded by people who want my attention? And one of the craziest things that I learned is, yes, you're forever going to be hounded by people who want all of your attention, all of your communication. They want all of you all the time. So for me, the big aha was when I had this client, and during a big launch, they were calling me at 2 a.m. in the middle of the night. And I denied the call and I texted back because I was scared. And I was like, what if I lose the client because I didn't answer this call at 2 a.m.? And I texted them back and I said, is this urgent? Because it's the middle of the night. I'm sleeping. I did leave my phone on just in case. And they said, no, we just need to touch base on something. And at that point, I was still early on in my career. So I called them back and took the call, right? Is anyone listening and kind of starting to see what's happening here?
What kind of standard is that setting?
Interesting. Marley, do you want to share your story?
Well, I also just, that gave me an idea of something that I know that happened to you. Like when you had Dominic, your baby, in April, and something that you said to some clients or your students was like, okay, the due date's coming up. If I am getting busy, you might not hear from me. But then there were some clients like you literally just gave birth and you had a client box you and you said, can I get back to you on Monday? I'm in the hospital. And your client was like, what's wrong? Are you okay? And you just said, I just had a baby. It was so funny that your client didn't know. But that's something to be aware of, that your clients are going to know what's going on in your life, or even just to set the standard that, no, I will not answer the phone for you at 2 a.m. Or Rachel and I have a mutual client that just went on vacation, and she sent an email to her whole team and said, like, here's how to direct communication. If you need something, go to here. If you need this, go to here. And that's what's going to set the standard so that you can have that freedom. And guess what? People will respect you for it, right? I just got back, as you can see, I'm filming from home today, which is very nice. Yay! The last like 4 episodes, the background has been different every single time because we've been in different locations for the last 4 weeks. We were on the road for over a month. And something that has been really, it's exciting on one hand, but it's also kind of tiring on the other to be like, I haven't been home in a long time. I haven't slept in my own bed. And when we get these opportunities, it's so easy to go, oh my gosh, this is exciting. Yes, yes, yes. But when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So although it's an opportunity for me and I can choose yes or no, I also have to consciously set intentional boundaries with myself of what is going to be good for me in the long run. Because if I keep traveling like this, I'm going to burn out. My husband's going to burn out. I'm going to miss my family. I'm going to miss my nieces and nephews' birthdays. I'm going to miss Thanksgiving. I'm already going to miss Thanksgiving. I've missed Thanksgiving 3 years in a row. Is that something that I want to continue doing, or is that a boundary I need to set for myself?
I absolutely love that. And one of the things that I want everyone listening to this or watching this live with us to understand is that there will never be a shortage of work, people who want your attention. And there are even things that may, at this point in your business, feel unattainable that there are never a shortage of. For example, speaking gigs, conferences, masterminds. I still remember the very first time that I started getting invited to those, and I just said yes to every single one because I was like, this is a huge opportunity. And one of the things that we quickly discovered was that there was not a shortage of opportunities. The only shortage was of my time and my attention and my money that I wanted to spend towards these opportunities. They literally were popping up like crazy, like popcorn. I mean, even this year, we scaled back on the number of events that we're doing. And in October, I have 6 events, which you're probably like, Rachel, right there is a boundary that you should have not crossed. However, we scaled back on all events throughout the whole year and allowed October to be our busy season. But one of the things that I really discovered with communication with clients, and it was actually one of my clients who taught me this, she set a boundary for me about how and when she liked to be communicated with. And I had so much respect for that because she's definitely a mature business owner. She's had her business for years. And she said, I just want to let you know, I don't like talking about business over Facebook Messenger. I don't want to get texts unless it's an emergency or just friendship, because those things interrupt my family time. When I'm available is these hours. If anything is an emergency, here's how you get a hold of me or another team member. Please don't make anything an emergency unless it really is. And I was like, wow, that is really well said. And so for me, I started to discover that when you set healthy boundaries with people, even for example, with like some of my students, I've set boundaries that I didn't have in the beginning, and it changed the game. I was just telling Marley, this is crazy. I was just telling my Kellyanne the other day about why I don't respond to every single message that I get from my students on Facebook Messenger. And it's because when I first started my online university, I was getting dozens of messages a day. And now that there are 1,200 students, if I replied to a message from every single student, even per week, I would never have time for family or myself or even running my own business, right? Like it wouldn't happen. And so I had to learn how to respectfully put that firm boundary into place and say, you know, I love that you asked this question. Can you ask it in the Facebook group so everyone can benefit from it? And the reality is part of it is that boundary of putting myself into a place of honoring myself, honoring my family, and honoring that I run businesses too.
Yeah. And like I said, when you say yes to something, you're saying no to something else. So if I say yes to all the messages and all the requests I'm getting, am I saying no to my niece's birthday party? Am I saying no to Thanksgiving? Those things are really important to me. When I first started my business, I wanted to serve everyone, every single opportunity that came up. Sure, I do social media. Yep, I do SEO. Yep, I build websites. Yep, I do graphic design. Even though not all of those things are my strengths. So when I would get that opportunity, I would say yes, just because I wanted the opportunity, I wanted the income, I wanted to connect with that person. But guess what? When you serve everyone, you serve no one, and you're especially not serving yourself. So when you look at the people who are specialized in what they do, who's the best person at building funnels? Russell Brunson, Stephen Larson, Chris Benetti. That's what they do. That's what they're known for, because they've niched down and they say yes to only those opportunities. And there's probably some other qualifying factors for what they say yes to. Maybe it has to be someone that aligns with their values. That's personally something that's so important to me. But that makes them stand out from the rest. So if you think that you want to serve the most people just by being a yes man or woman, yes, breadwinning woman, you can't say yes to everything. What's the thing that can narrow you down that people will know you for? Like Rachel and I, we have students that we know of that used to do everything, but guess what? They would burn out. And then when they decided, what's my passion? What's my area of specialty and expertise? That's when they became more successful. And it might sound counterintuitive to narrow down your opportunities, but when you actually do narrow down that opportunity, you create so much more because it becomes what you're known for. So that's kind of like setting a boundary with yourself. That, for example, I had a call yesterday where someone said, can you make these videos? Yes, we went forward on that, but then also said, and can you do this social media? You know what? I don't do social media anymore, but let me refer you to someone. And then I get to provide value to someone else who might be looking for a client and someone that I know. And because of what I specialize in, and I know that someone else specializes in something better, they're going to provide a better service. Whew, that was a bit of we might have gone off tangent from setting boundaries, but I also want you to understand that when you do say yes to what's actually right for you, you're going to create more opportunity, even though it might sound counterintuitive.
That also brings us to another point, and that is that not every client is right for you. Now, at SME Live, one of the things I talked about was how sometimes on the journey of entrepreneurship, you are going to do things that aren't the right fit. I mean, Marley, how long did you spend doing like Facebook ads and social media before you were like, I don't want to do this at all?
I didn't like it. And for me, it felt like dragging myself against the pavement because I thought it was what I should be doing to be successful. And I didn't like it. And I've definitely taken on clients too that were not the right fit and hated it the whole time.
Oh my gosh. So one of the things about boundaries is not just taking on any client and trying to teach them your boundaries, but I'm going to share with you guys two major things that we've learned over the last 6 months. And one of those is that sometimes it requires saying no to clients who you believe are going to push boundaries. I will never forget. This happened this month. A prospective client reached out to me and my team, and he wanted us to start working for him that day. He was like, I want to spend $10,000 to $50,000 a day. I want you to start working today. Like, let's get going. And I was like, I don't understand the rush and I'm not comfortable with it. Like, that's not normal. I don't know you. We don't have a relationship. And then we've got people coming up talking loudly on the phone. So then from there, you guys, it only started to get worse and worse. As my team member said to him, you need to schedule a call with Rachel. She needs to make sure it's a good fit. And literally a couple days later, they said, are we ready to rock and roll? What? They said, we're ready to go. Come on, we launch tomorrow. And he said, no, I made it clear you needed to set up a call with us so we could make sure that it was the right fit. And guess what, you guys? He got upset with us because we weren't willing to jump when he snapped. And we had never signed an agreement. We had never had a launch call. We had never received payment. He wanted us to jump in and get everything figured out within a couple hours. And he said, this is not cool. I launch tomorrow. Huge red flag. And that's a sign that that's someone you will never be able to train to trust and obey the boundaries that you put into place. So I would never take on a client like that because that sets you up completely for failure. Now, the second thing that we learned, and this was really crazy, I'm having a brain fart for just a second, and I'm going to think of what it was.
Well, I was going to say that with that, the client is showing you who they are before you even have the opportunity to work with them. So when they teach you who they are, believe them.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, that is so true. Now, here was the other big thing that we learned with clients, and it is this crazy concept. Anyone who's watching or listening, if you've ever gotten a new puppy or you have kids, one of the things that is so crazy that most of us don't realize is that puppies and kids don't believe what you say. They believe what you follow through with. So when you say to your kids, you need to eat your vegetables, or when you say to a dog, go potty outside, unless you make sure that that is the standard that is maintained, the dog is going to pee inside. The kids aren't going to eat their vegetables. The same thing is true with grown-ups, as crazy as it is. People don't believe what you say. People believe what you do and what you follow through with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you let that, how many times have you been at a birthday party and there's that kid that's out of control and the parent's like, if you do that one more time, you don't get to go in the bouncy castle. And then sure enough, they do it one more time and the parent's like, oh, whatever. And they still get to go in the bouncy castle. They didn't actually follow through with that consequence. And sometimes without realizing it, we can do that to ourselves and our boundaries and our own commitments that we've made to our clients. And who's the one that suffer the consequence? We do.
Absolutely. So it's not just about setting the boundaries, it's also about enforcing them. And so a couple tips that you guys can take away from this episode of Breadwinning Women TV. Number one, be sure that you have clear boundaries in place. Number two, if someone feels like they're breaking those boundaries or they're not respecting those boundaries, don't choose to work with them. Believe them when they show you who they are, like Marley said. And number three, follow through with your boundaries so that you are actually doing what you say. So if a client texts you at 2 a.m., ignore it. Or if a client calls you and it's the evening time, ignore the call and say, hey, I'm with my family like I communicated I will be in the evenings. Is this a 911 emergency or can it wait until tomorrow? They'll usually say it can wait until tomorrow. And guess what? They'll respect that you respected those boundaries because suddenly it unlocks them and their ability to give themselves boundaries and maybe take a break from work and go hang out with their family.
That's right. That's what we're all here for. That's the biggest thing. And we talked about this so much at Rachel's event, SMU Live, last weekend, about why did we start these businesses? For freedom, for flexibility, for family. And a lot of times we get wrapped up in the busy work, and that's not actually why we signed up for this. So I hope you guys remember that, and I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you're watching on Facebook, comment below. Let us know what your biggest takeaway was. If you're on Breadwinning Women TV, the YouTube channel, please give us a subscribe. And if you're listening to the podcast, subscribe, and we'd love if you leave a review for us, and we will see you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.